Now we shall look at how to locate specific elements using Selenium. We shall head back to our WebDriver test code and remove some unnecessary lines. Now let us try to have Selenium click on the first or home button for the first match entrant. For that, we have to get the class name for this first button alongside the class name for the whole of the first match entry. So we right click on the button and opt for Inspect Element. We find that the button we see is actually a label element whose one of the class name is btn. Note that this element has 3 class names separated by a space. We can use any, but let's stick to btn. So the label element is the first of its type within the btn group element, which is the class name for the first match entrant. We shall try and style the button using the CSS pseudo element selector. So on the styling section within the header, we type in the pseudo class selector for the first match entrant, space, then the pseudo class name to target the first element bearing the class name btn under the fball-entry element. Then we shall give the element a green background. Upon reloading, it styles exactly as instructed. Now we can also include the button group class name, which will give the same results, but it wouldn't be necessary as the said element of interest is the first of its type for the first match entrant. Notice that when you place the cursor over the selector in Visual Studio Code, it will show you how the elements in your selector statement are nested. Now we can copy this selector and get back to the WebDriver-test file. We want Selenium to click on this button. So we use the find_element method and within it pass the class by that we had imported earlier on, then specify that we want to find the element using its CSS selector. We shall type in a comma, then paste the selector string within the quotes. Then we shall tell Selenium to click on the located element. When we run the code, we get an element click intercepted error and some description for it. Now this error is thrown because in our case, where Selenium is looking for the label, it is not there. That is because we had zoomed out the site using JavaScript, but Selenium does not know about that. So we have 2 solutions. The first and obvious is to remove the zoom out script. Then we can save and run the code. And when the code runs, we get no errors. Another solution will be to use the JavaScript.click method instead of Selenium's. For that, we use the execute_script method, then instruct that JavaScript should click on the first argument. In arrays, which are denoted by square brackets, the first element is usually denoted or assigned a 0. Then we make use of JavaScript's click function to click on the located element. The argument we pass, or the first argument, which we denote by the 0, is the Selenium selector line, which we shall copy and paste, excluding the click method. And before proceeding, we can do away with the subsequent line, which has now become redundant. Then we will delay code execution for 4 seconds. Now when we run the code, we still get our zoom out and the first button of the first match entrant gets clicked. So back on the CSS section of our website source code, let's do away with the line that styles the first button of the first match entrant with a green background. Then we shall have Selenium click on the third button of the last match entrant. So the last or 10th match entrant is the last child of its parent, and the third or away button is the last of label types of its parent element. And when the browser loads, we wait for the 4 seconds when execution is frozen. Then the third button of the last match entrant is clicked before execution is terminated. Going back to the concept of arrays, we can add a second argument to the JavaScript, which will be to click on the first button. So the second argument is assigned a value of 1 in the arrays. And to add the second argument, we append a comma, and then we can copy the first argument and paste it after the comma. Now the duty assigned the second argument will be to click the first or home option button of the first match entrant. Then we shall drop the code after every comma just for better visibility. Now the one we had denoted in the array implies that the code will ignore the first argument, and since the one denotes the second argument, it will instead execute the second argument. Now let's add a third argument. For that, we append a comma and copy the second argument. We then paste it below, and the third argument will be instructed to focus on the fifth match entrant and click on the away or third button of the fifth match entrant. So in the square bracket, we use a 2 which represents the third argument. We run the code and get the desired behavior. The third argument is executed as we had instructed. Now since this is a Selenium course and not one for JavaScript, we shall revert to using Selenium's click method.